Hey guys, Steve Zonardo here with Remax West Zonardo Associates. Happy Monday morning. Just a real quick update of the market. Current inventory right now, we're at 16,208 units with 729 units actually selling. So if you kind of overlap today's report over the last, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, it's been almost identical with the 16,000 inventory and also the amount of sales between the 700-800 units per week. So like over 100 sales per day in all the GTA and Toronto, which is okay. Obviously, it's starting to ebb down. Cool thing is, we listed a property in Milton and we went back to the old strategy because now if you list a property, they're not selling. So what we did, let's reverse the thought process. So we listed it for a bidding war. We put it down. Property was worth about, let's say, I don't know, on paper between 1040 to 1060, just about there. And so we listed at 999 and we get a shitload of showings. We have literally something like 25 to 28 showings in like 3 to 4 days. So obviously this is a hot it's a small property, but it became really hot. But I'm still confused because there's like 63 units in that area, like for sale, 63 listings in this little pocket. 33 of them were detached properties. So it is what it is. So we listed it for a bidding war and we get like 27 to 28 showings. We get 5 offers registered. And I actually did this deal in my office in Florida and we sell for like, $30,000 over asking. So we sell for 1030, just around where today's market value is. And we're on and off the market in 4 days, good deposit, 50K deposit, closing that we wanted and zero conditions, so it was firm. So this was it was good. So we're actually we've initiated this at another property we have in Angus. We're going to see today is the offer date, and again that property had maybe 5 showings or 6 showings in the last, let's say, 90 days for that property, and now we've listed it aggressively like at 599. It's probably worth it between 650 and 680, and we got like 18 to 22 showings, 23 showings over the weekend, so this is good. We'll report on this next week, let you know how this bidding war goes, and if this strategy keeps working, we're going to start reversing all of our listings into this bidding war strategy and unload them and get ready for the next price decreases or next next quarter of the year on how the pricing is going to be. Talking about interest rates, naturally we know I did this report in Florida when we had that 100 basis point increase by the Bank of Canada. Yeah, this is gonna affect a whole bunch of people. Starting to hear grumbles between that like July 13th, I think it was, till today, about people talking about affordability and their line of credit, how it's gone up extremely high, and the cost of holding on to it. Also, people that have an open variable mortgage. We have one of those on one of our rental properties now because we were subdividing the lot. So now we have to figure if we got to close it into a 1 or 2 year or just let it ride. So this is another problem I have to deal with today at some point. But if you look at the interest rates, the biggest jump on the 5-year fix, let's say, if I overlap TD's posted rates prior to the increase in the overnight lending rate to today, it's only 10 basis points on their 3 and 5 year fix. The only substantial one is their 5-year variable, where it went from 3.3% to 4.35%. So it's like a 105% increase in the overnight lending rate. So that one's obviously taken a hit for anyone that has it open like mine right now, which is it's unfortunate, but again, that's the only strategy we could have used at the time. It would obviously, we knew the market was going to correct at some point, but we're kind of looking at this thing that this is going to go very deep, and I kind of addressed this early on that it's going to go deep. Reminds me of the 80s, late 80s, where they had that massive correction. Obviously it was like 7 or 8 years old, but I remember my dad always talking about it and always brought it up, like 10, 20, 30 years after that boom bust cycle, and how he used to, people were walking away from their homes, they couldn't afford it, the interest rates spiked up, houses were overvalued, this whole thing similar to what we're having here. But if I kind of give you an example where I think this is going to be, this is why I say that our property values will come back to this point between another 5 to 7 years, even 10, like 7 to 10 years, I think. Because if you look at 1988 in Weston Downs here in Woodbridge, which was like an affluent area, it was the only area that was like bricked all around. It was almost like a little gated community, very, very upscale for the time. A property at the height of that market, let's say, was selling like 700,000-800,000, depending on the square footage and stuff like that. But let's say 700,000-800,000 at the height. when that market dropped, that dropped in half and less. So a house was like 750, 800,000, went down to like 350, 380, and stayed there for a very long time. And then I got into into real estate as a sales agent in 2010. So imagine that's like 20 years later. And at that point, that neighborhood started getting that $700,000-800,000 range after like 20 years, which is quite scary. Hopefully we don't take that long to gain back the equity that we're currently losing right now. I don't think it'll be that long. I think like 7 to 10 years, maybe potentially. Or could be 5 to 7. I'm not sure. But let's see. Let's play it by ear. We'll definitely keep reporting on any new information we're going to get or receiving or analyzing, and we'll definitely spit it out to the community. Quickly talking about Florida, we were there for 12 days. We did a lot of it was a family vacation, but a lot of it's business right now. I feel so bad for the kids. Like, they had 2 beach days and the rest was like just going crazy. Obviously, we bought an investment property down there, so we want to furnish it. So go to a furniture store. We bought another property for us down there for like a primary residence. So we've spent a lot of time digging around, and also for business rather, and also the office. We had to make sure everything's up and going there. And keep it going. So that's pretty good. But the cool thing about being 12 to 14 days in Florida, especially the West Coast where we are between, well, I think we're close to Naples, let's just say, and going down with the family, and I brought my dog, it's like living back in the 80s. It's quite amazing. I feel like very safe there. It's such a very cool, calm environment. Weather's brilliant. At night, during the day it's obviously blistering right now because it's their summer months, but at night, usually it rains a couple hours, cools down. You can still kind of hang out outside. You go out to dinner with a pair of nice jeans or a dress shirt and not, sweat to death in a sense, right? So, but again, the safety aspect of it and just the feel of it, like back to the 80s where everyone's friendly, opening doors, everyone's very chatty. It's a nice little feeling. It's almost like we're gonna try hard to kind of re-assimilate in something in a community like this again, where we have to open up those channels that we've sort of like maybe shrank in our country here, or in Toronto especially. So quite cool. I know people always have doubts about Florida, is thinking about, they think it's a gun-happy place. Obviously, the guns are there, and the guns are here too, because if you look at my neighborhood in Nobleton, there was literally 5 or 6 shootings in the actual area in the last, let's say, 5 years. Literally, one just happened not too long ago, and it wasn't even reported on the news, where they drove by a car on Wedgeport, which is literally down the street from me off of Black Tusk, and literally shot up a car, lit up a car with like 7 or 8 shots. That's us in Canada. There's 9 rounds in a 9mm, so they basically unloaded a round in a car, like a parked vehicle, and there's a bunch of shit going on. So for safety aspect and for guns, we don't see any guns there. It's very safe. Everything closed down very early because we're in the West Coast, like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., everything starts shutting down. Even gas stations. It's really, like I'm saying, like going back to the 80s, where even on Sundays, some businesses don't open up because it's obviously a Sabbath. People stay home and don't work, which is quite cool. But yeah, really cool experience. We're going to keep looking forward to reporting back to the Canadians on the real Florida, not the broadcasted through the the news. Because anybody talked about Florida, they're always saying, "Oh, aren't you worried about the gun laws?" I mean, yeah, the guns are everywhere. It is what it is. Obviously, you want to keep your in where you're going pretty safe, and obviously there's always a threat with the schools, but also that threat is here. It just hasn't happened yet, and here we're more vulnerable because we're not set up for it. So, it is what it is. But cool. If I had to grade it so far, like we've been back multiple times, and now with the family, it's a 10 out of 10, to be honest. I can't see any negatives. It's the only con I saw, or now that I'm more research into it, is the cost of living is actually more expensive than here in Canada, which I had the reverse thought of that going into it, where it was going to be a less expensive place to live, but it's actually a little bit more costly. But if you're turning US dollars and you're doing you're pursuing your career in US dollars, you should be fine, because obviously it'll offset all the expenses. Now it's a little bit, with our exchange 28 to 30% on our dollar, it's going to hurt for sure. But ultimately in the future, we should be okay. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions about here in Toronto or in Florida, please reach out. Have a great day.